According to the Harvard Business Review, starting a business while still in college is becoming an emerging trend. The school reports that 17% of college students in the U.S. alone operate businesses while still receiving their education, and another 16% plan to start a business upon graduation, which provides credence to the argument that entrepreneurship is becoming a lucrative career option for many Americans. For Noah Hutton, after graduating college with no job offers, he set out on his own to begin a real estate and media company. As he looked to grow into more industries and increase his revenue stream, he started doing commercial media, photography, podcast production, and all the digital aspects of running a business so that his clients wouldn't get saturated in the digital space. He works with brands to ensure that they have high quality media to add to their marketing materials, including brand videos, commercials, short form videos, and podcasts. Hutton says he's always up for a challenge, and most recently, he's discovered a passion for corporate event photography, and he's on a mission to grow his business in that regard. And he's also passionate about showing other young entrepreneurs through hard work, discipline, and grit, they can also realize their entrepreneurial dreams at a young age. And he joined me this week to tell me how he makes sure that his entrepreneurial spirit helps him to follow his passion, pay his bills, and lead by example. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. If you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, and I'm super excited to learn about your journey in entrepreneurship this morning. Happy Friday to you, and it's good to see you, my friend.
Yes, thank you for having me on. Good to see you as well.
Absolutely. So, I know that you're a younger entrepreneur, and I wanted to start our conversation by asking you about your business journey, because I know it started in college after you were having a little bit of a difficulty finding jobs, and you sort of took things in your own hands. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about your entrepreneurial journey, my friend.
Yeah, so in college, I'll go back a little even before that. So during my sophomore year in 2020, I started a clothing brand because I wanted to learn how to do graphic design, and I wanted a purpose for that. And that kind of gave me the entrepreneurship bug of like, I want to be an entrepreneur full time. And so that kind of got that journey started, and I knew I wanted to do it eventually. But coming out of college, I really was looking for financial stability and also being able to move out of Indiana and move across the country. I was planning on moving out to Los Angeles. And so I ended up searching for a 9-to-5 position, just a job in advertising technology. And I had zero luck getting a job. I just could not get any interviews. I had like 2 interviews, but I couldn't get any job offers. And so at some point, I think it was like July into August, I was like, I have to do something because I can't keep applying for jobs that just send my resume into a black hole. And so I decided that I was going to start doing real estate media full time, or at least part time. I had been doing a little bit of that back in March of 2022, and I really enjoyed it. So I started to get a little bit of traction back in my hometown, and I decided to pursue that more. And I started to get a little bit of work here and there. I started working with other brands, doing other things, talking to other organizations about doing photography for their conferences, and just kind of getting any job I could with my camera to do work and grow my business and meet new people. Um, and that kind of leads me into 2023 and kind of now. So I made the decision a couple months ago to go full time starting May 5th. So May 5th is actually my last day at an internship that I've still had since I graduated college. Um, and that is I've kind of gotten to the point where I see the light at the end of the tunnel of like, okay, I can actually make this a full time job. I can make this something that I can provide for myself and actually make a career out of the business that I'm working on. And so this year has been a lot of a really like good growth year, both personally and business wise, and just pushing myself to grow my business and get it to a point where I can make it my full time career.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that you have obviously experience running your own business, and you have some thoughts on how other young entrepreneurs can experience sustained success. So I'm wondering if you can sort of pave a roadmap for me when it comes to success for younger entrepreneurs as you see it as well.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that if I were talking to a younger entrepreneur, if they were like considering starting a business, is they just need to start. They just need to do something. Whether if you're looking to be a social media manager, if you're looking to be a photographer, a videographer, or start a clothing line of some sort, or do graphic design as a job, you just need to start somewhere. You need to work on getting that first client, especially if you're a creative entrepreneur. You need to work on your portfolio, but just start taking steps towards being an entrepreneur and starting your own business, because you can think about it forever. And if you don't start, those thoughts will just be in your head and you'll kind of overthink about everything and get to a point where you're just kind of stuck in that thinking process. So I always say, and this is something I learned, especially last year when I was starting my podcast, was you don't really know anything until you start it. You really can only learn and grow in a meaningful way once you start doing things, and you're only going to make the mistakes you need to make to grow if you start your journey. So what I always say is you just really have to start somewhere, take that first step towards entrepreneurship, and it doesn't have to be a big investment. It doesn't have to be quitting your job and going full time as a business owner. It can be just starting to pursue that first client on the side and doing that on the weekend. It can be, you know, interning for somebody, or just going on part time if you're a videographer, being like a second or third camera on a shoot, just starting to do that with other people, being a wedding videographer along with a more established one. It can be anything, but you just need to start somewhere, because if you don't take that step to start, you're not going to see any meaningful progress if you actually want to be a business owner.
Yeah, absolutely. And Noah, talk to me about taking the leap in business as a young entrepreneur. What do you think has to has to occur really to have the entrepreneurial courage to take the leap as a young entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think part of it is taking that first step right before you're actually going to go full time. You just need to start somewhere and get something going, because that's the only way, again, like I said, you're going to see any meaningful change and meaningful progress. But actually taking that step from being a part time or having a side hustle to making it your full time business is all about confidence, and it's all about just courage and making that decision, because you have to be confident in your work, and you have to be confident that you can bring in work every single month, every single week, and start making money as a full-time entrepreneur. Because I think with especially creative entrepreneurs, we all like love what we do. We love our work, but we're also running a business. And so there's that financial aspect too of you have to provide for yourself or have somebody that can provide for you while you're growing that business. But I think once you get to a point where you're ready to take that leap, one thing I'll say first of all is you're never ready to do it. You're never at a point where you think it is the right time. You just have to find a point where you're say like a good way to do it is like say in 6 months I'm going to do it and prepare for that 6 month and hold yourself to that 6 month date, because then you kind of have that mindset of like, okay, May 5th or whatever date it is, I'm, quitting my 9 to 5. So that salary is going to go away. So I need to put myself in a position to where I can either replace that salary or get to a point where I'm really close to replacing that salary. Or if I'm married or I have a partner, I can talk to them and say like, hey, I'm going to do this in 3 months. I'll be able to replace my salary, but I'm going to need this, I'm going to need some help for these first 3 months. So having conversations with people that are going to be affected by that leap is really important, but also just setting a date and holding yourself to it and putting yourself in a position to where you can make that leap. Because like for me, like May 5th, it came up way quicker than I thought it would. But I've also been working really hard at growing my business a lot and pursuing new avenues that can financially help me get into a place where I can start paying myself and I can start providing for my needs and getting to a point where I can, you know, have that full-time position and basically pay myself and provide for myself in my business. So for me, it was just deciding that and also having somebody else hold me accountable to that. So like for me, I went to my boss and I said like, hey, May 5th is that day. And I can't just go back to him. I mean, I could, they would love to have me back, but I can't just go back to him and say like, actually, never mind. I'm going to stay a little bit longer. Like I need to hold myself accountable and I need them to hold me accountable to that date. And that kind of puts me in a position of like, it is May 5th is the day you're taking the leap. You're going to go full time. Your only job and your only source of income is your business at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, I know it means something to you to be a creative entrepreneur. So how do you define that term, my friend?
Yeah. So I mean, creative entrepreneur kind of practically is just somebody who's working in a creative field, whether it's photography, video, graphic design, art, interior design, anything like that. But also, I think kind of to go more high level on it, entrepreneurship is a creative endeavor, no matter how you put it, because you're going to have to be creative in how you grow the business. Because I think today in this world, like we're kind of past the point where Facebook ads can just like accelerate your business completely, or like putting money into a business. It definitely helps, but I think you also have to put in, the work and the grind and figure out ways to get creative in getting clients or reaching out to clients and getting their attention. Because especially if you want bigger clients, a cold email might not necessarily work. Like I've had friends who have created a little commercial for a potential client that they want to work with, or a musical artist. Like I had a guy in my podcast who made a video kind of to one of his songs, one of the artist musical artist songs, and he posted it on Twitter and tagged him and said like, hey, I'd love to come on tour with you. And that artist saw that little video he made and said, yeah, let's go on tour. And he's been on tour with him, I think a couple times, at least once, and a different legs, but a couple times. So I think it's not only the job you're doing, whether it's photography, videography, creating something, creating art, creating anything like that, but it's also just being creative in how you're growing your business and how you are trying to just grow the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, I know at the heart of your entrepreneurial journey and business, you're a storyteller that's passionate about capturing and sharing the unique and narratives and stories of people and brands, my friend. So tell me about the heart of your passion and why you're so passionate about being a storyteller.
Yeah, so I think being a storyteller kind of goes back to just that's kind of what is at the heart of videos you create, whether it is a podcast that was educational, whether it's narrative or if it's fiction, nonfiction, whatever you're doing, there's a story element there, just kind of start to finish. And because if there isn't, then the video really doesn't have a lot of meaning, or it's a lot harder to find that meaning, and that's kind of a creative choice you make. So for me, whenever I talk about just being a storyteller, I just think of whenever I work, just I naturally bring story into it. So like talking on this podcast right now, I told a story of how I got into I got to my position as an entrepreneur, I told a story about, a podcast guest that I had on. So I feel like naturally when I talk, I tell it in story form, and examples of my work. So just in general, I see myself as a storyteller just naturally in life, and that kind of translates into my work, being a videographer and a photographer. Like the photos that I provide, the gallery of photos I provide for a client tells a story. The video I'm creating tells a story. So just in general, my work has a story element to it wherever I go. And that is something that I really am passionate about because that's kind of how you have to, that is how you have to get people's attention is with story and create content. Like really good content has story behind it. And sometimes it's not, beginning, middle, and end. There's story elements to it, and that's what is behind really good video, really good content, really good photography. There's some sort of story, whether it's context around the piece or it's in the actual element of the piece.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you've recently gotten into corporate event photography, my friend, and telling stories through pictures as well. So tell me about telling a story through a photography and how it may be different from telling a story through video, for example.
Yeah. So yeah, corporate event photography is something I didn't really think I would be really enjoy. I got it through just I saw an opportunity. I got somebody reached out to me through my internship actually and said, hey, our photographer isn't available for these dates. Would you be interested in this gig? And I was like, absolutely, I'll take any position I can get. And so I was also just travel. There's an element of travel. It was in New Orleans for that gig, so I was really excited about that as well. And the money was a lot better than maybe something I'd done in the past, so that helped a lot too. But just in general, I was excited for a new adventure, and also I've known the people that I worked with for years now, so it was exciting just get to know them. And I don't work with them in person a lot, so that was nice too. But just in general with those events, a lot of those corporate events, there's a couple different elements. There's the kind of just expo, there's like the vendor expo, there's the networking sessions, there's the networking opportunities in like the lobby area, just where people are walking around talking to each other. And then there's a lot of educational sessions or a keynote speaker or something like that, some sort of a presentation. And so you're telling the story in different ways. So I always say, like, for those, if you look at the gallery of photos from an event, whether it's from like day one of the vendor expo or whether it's from a keynote speech, you can tell a story through the photo of with the people's face, with the reactions of the people around them, with the energy that they bring to the stage. And some people are very like closed off and like calm on stage, and some people are very animated. And especially in those animated ones, you can really see their passion. So even in the photo, it's just a still photo, you can kind of see where they get excited about the things they're talking about. One example I can give is in that event, there was a speaker. Her name was Alicia. I want to say it was Alicia Adams, and I don't think that's right. And I want to look it up just to make sure because she was a fantastic speaker. I'm gonna look it up while I talk. But so her name is Alicia, and she was big on kind of disability in the workplace and how to get around disability, or at least navigate that in the workplace. And you could just see her passion. You could see the struggle that she went through. You could see in her stories that she was telling. You could really just see the things that she went through and how she was translating that on stage. And so her name was Alicia Anderson. And so you could see just that passion on stage in the photos that I got, especially the more when she was more energetic and more expressive. In that sense, those photos really told a story of, you could see just her passion and what she was talking about. And so I think that's a great example of kind of telling a story through photos, is if you look through that whole gallery, you just see kind of the passion and everything that she does, and all the photos that I took.
Yeah, absolutely. And Noah, I know that you help your clients sort of stand out in a crowded digital space, and everything in business today seems to be digital. So I'm fascinated to ask you about how you help clients sort of not become saturated or suppressed in a crowded digital space.
Yeah, that's something that's really difficult right now, especially with just how much content is being fed into social media platforms. I think a couple things that I talk with clients about is finding platforms that work for them that aren't going to be a chore for them to use. So, if you enjoy using Instagram, like just use Instagram a lot. If you enjoy Facebook, use Facebook a lot. If you find your audience is on Facebook, use that. Don't try to take them to Twitter because they're not on Twitter. So, and if your business, like if you're a coach, Twitter's fantastic for you. LinkedIn's fantastic for you. So finding that platform that is A, where your audience is, and B, it's not a lot of work for you. That's one thing. But one thing that I also help my clients with, and just in general, is giving them a lot of video content and taking that burden off of their shoulders. Because, a lot of times I'm working with a director of operations or a director of marketing or somebody that is just handling the marketing. Maybe it's not even in their job description, but they're handling the marketing for the business. And they have 50 things on their plate, and one of them is not shooting video content and social media content for the brand. So that's where I come in and I work with them and I say, like, okay, let's, as long as you can help me organize, the different employees that we need and the different people in the business to come and be in the video content, I will take care of, sometimes the idea. I work with them on the idea a lot of, like, if I have a vision or if they have a vision, we can work on that, but also just in general how we shoot it. Because usually I walk into a conference room or an empty room or whatever, and I say, like, okay, we got to move this around and we're going to set up this space to shoot this type of content. And so I take that burden off of them, because for somebody who's not in video or doesn't enjoy creating video, that's a really hard thing for them to add and start doing. And so when I go in, I'm not only advising them on maybe how to place their content, but I'm also just taking that burden off of them and giving them an opportunity to stand out with some really high quality video content on their brand, because that's something everybody wants, but not everybody knows how to do. And so that's where I come in. And as long as it's a good partnership, you can take advantage of really high quality video content and, just elevate your brand with that on different social media platforms and stand out with that.
I was just asking you about having the sort of business courage to sort of delegate tasks, because for some business owners it's hard for them to delegate tasks, and if you're not used to creating video content or podcasting, as you said, and it's a really sort of difficult arena to start tackling on your own. So tell me about the importance of knowing when to delegate and when to trust other people to help elevate your business in your view.
Yeah, so delegation is something that's kind of an interesting topic, because I'm also struggling with where to delegate my work. I should be hiring some sort of an assistant or hiring some sort of editor or something to delegate some work where I could maybe put more time into business development or just growing the business more. And so that's something that I'm still struggling with. But if I was talking to a business owner that I wanted to work with and they were, struggling with giving up some creative control or giving up some of that work or workflow, what I would say to them is just, it's all about communication. And whenever I work with clients, I am completely, I need that communication with them, and it needs to be a partnership. It can't just be like, hey, go do this, because I want to deliver high quality content that is in their vision and that they enjoy. So whenever I work with them, I'm constantly sending drafts over and be like, hey, what do you think of this? Do you like this graphic? Do you like this color? Do you like the pacing of this video? What do we want to change? Because the clients that have chosen to delegate out that video work to me, they still have a big hand in it, because they may not have time to shoot it and edit it. That's where I come in, but I still want them to, have a piece of control on it, of what it looks like and what the end product is. So I think it's really hard to delegate tasks out and, send those tasks out. But as long as you find somebody who is going to work with you as a partner and not just kind of a contract worker that's just going to do it and send it back and not have any communication back with you, I think forming that partnership is really important in that sense. And even if you are hesitant about delegating the work, as long as you find somebody that is willing to communicate with you, is really important, because then that can make the partnership really, really good and make the work really, really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, I wanted to go back to something you said earlier about being a young entrepreneur and really starting out in business, because when you first start out in business, you really want to make sure that the business is on good financial footing, and in certain instances, you may not pay yourself an instant salary when you start your business. So I was just curious to get your thoughts on the delicate sort of tap dance you have to go through as an entrepreneur, whether to pay yourself or invest money back in your business. Give me your thoughts there, buddy.
Yeah, so I can explain what I did and maybe what I would have done different. Oh, I would have done differently last year. So what I ended up doing when I started out my business was any money that I made in the business, and even money that I had prior to the business, it all went into the business and it stayed in the business, and it still is technically in the business right now. So my first purchase was money that I had prior to the business. I bought a drone for my business because I knew I needed that capability of aerial photography and aerial video. So that was money I brought into the business that I already had. And then once I started making money with that there was, I don't think I've never paid myself. I've never made a transfer out of the business to this day. So any money that I made stayed in the business, and it went towards purchasing camera equipment and camera gear. I think I made about $7,000 worth of gear purchases last year, and that was just to build up the things I needed. I got the basics. I got like a camera and a lens, a gimbal, a drone, a new tripod, a light, a flash, like basic things like that. And then there were just all the other business expenses of software and tools and cables and accountants and all this kind of stuff, legal fees, things like that. So right now, all the money that I have made has stayed in the business and is still in the business, whether it's in assets or it's in just cash in different places in the business. But going forward, I am going to start paying myself because I need to start getting comfortable with that money always coming out of the business. And like for me, that might only be, a couple $100 a week, or it might be like $1,000 a month or whatever to start. And then when I get to a point where I can grow more, I can invest, or I can take more out and start paying myself more of like what a salary would look like for a regular employee. And that's just my position. Like if other business owners are in a different position, they can do what's right for them. But that's just kind of how I did it. What I would have done differently in the beginning, though, is I would have started paying myself immediately. And that might have only looked like, for every $200 I made, $50 went to me. Or for every like $500 I made, $150 went to me. Or whatever it was, just to start getting used to that money coming out and paying myself, because I just need to have that be, because that's the most important thing, is providing for myself and then providing for my family in the future. So having that money coming out and making that a priority should have been something I did in the future, but it's something I'm starting to do now. And that's just kind of the journey I've been on it with it. But I'm big into investing in the business, especially if you're creative. I'm big into investing in camera equipment that's good enough. I'm big in, like, if you have the money, like let's say you set a budget of $2,500 for a camera and a lens, or $1,500 for a camera and a lens, buying the best possible thing you can get at that budget is so important, and seeing it as an investment as opposed to just an expense for the business. Because like for me, that camera has paid itself over like 4 or 5 times at least, probably way more. So seeing that gear as an investment, and also being methodical about the pieces that you purchase. So like I bought a gimbal. It's over in the background here, but it's $1,000 gimbal. The biggest one that this brand has. I love the idea of it. When I bought it, I was I'm gonna buy the nicest one and then keep it for 5 years. It's gonna pay for itself. It's gonna be great. But I didn't realize how heavy it was, and I didn't realize how impractical it was. So what I should have done is bought something smaller and then been okay with upgrading to something in the future. So I should have been a little bit more methodical about that purchase. And in the future, I do have like pieces that I'm looking at, but I'm being very methodical about the pieces I purchase, because I want them to be longer term investments and not maybe shorter term pieces that I have to replace in a year or two.
Well, that goes back to the power of research, right, Noah?
Yes, definitely.
Absolutely. And no, I know that you host your own podcast called The Rest of Us Through Buddy, where you talk to entrepreneurs about their journey in business, and you have meaningful conversations to help try to elevate other people in business. So tell me about your podcast, buddy, and the mission behind it.
Yeah, so my podcast is called The Rest of Us. It is basically focused on talking to young entrepreneurs like myself, people who are going through that journey still of growing their business, figuring out how to, onboard clients, just get new clients, start their business. And I've talked to a lot of different people, whether it's photographers and videographers, to food truck owners, to just social media marketers, digital marketers, business strategists, people that own SaaS businesses, like tech businesses, things like that. So I talked to a lot of different people, and my biggest thing with that was I wanted to have a podcast that showcased that younger voice, because whenever I look at podcasts now, especially the ones that I'm really excited to listen to, all of them are bringing on big VC backed firms that are, in the Series B funding round, and they're taking all this money. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that is a way to grow the business, and a lot of businesses have been successful. Like, I wouldn't be using half the stuff I use if there wasn't a VC backer on a business, because they allowed that business to grow. But I didn't see a lot of younger entrepreneurs in the podcasting space, in the podcast that I listened to, and I didn't see that opportunity for a lot of people. So I wanted to just have more conversations with entrepreneurs, because I think that's really important and really helped me grow my business a lot. But also I just wanted to give that opportunity to people that wanted to show their business and share about their business, but didn't maybe have a place to go. So that's the focus on my podcast. I just released episode 13, 12 or 13 last week, and I'm releasing the next episode on Monday this week. They come out on Mondays at 7 a.m. every week. And I have about 8 or 9 in the already recorded. So really excited to get all those out there, because there's a lot of great conversations that I've had.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's another way to sort of diversify your own brand by hosting your own podcast, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's more of a passion project right now, but I am looking at kind of what I can do with it in the future, and make it more a part of, my business or just my personal brand.
Well, every opportunity for growth is an opportunity for advancement, right, Noah?
Yep.
Absolutely. And Noah, tell me, you're a young entrepreneur. What do you think is the key to sort of getting your foot in the door and building sustainable relationships with key stakeholders that you may view as critical to advancing the growth and viability of your business? So how do you think you grow sustainable relationships as a young entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest keys that I've talked about on other podcasts, and I've talked about on mine, is networking. So getting your face out there and going to events and going to meetings and meeting business owners in person is huge for your business. I think if you can get, a face-to-face meeting with anybody, that is going to be a 10 times more likely successful meeting, whether it results in like a sale or a deal then or in 10 months. Getting in front of people in person is so critical. I started my business out just by cold calling and cold emailing, and that it worked a little bit, but it didn't really give me any growth, like you said, sustainable growth. But what I'm seeing now is when I'm going to networking events, I'm joining nonprofit associations that are in my space, or even in spaces that I want to be involved in, like the meeting space and the corporate event space. Things like that, getting in front of people is huge for that. I have a kind of a story about that. So I just went to an event down in Indianapolis. It's for an organization called MPI, which is Meeting Professionals International. And I met this guy at the event, and he was telling me about a big conference that's coming to Indianapolis. And if I hadn't met him, I wouldn't have had that conference on my radar at all. I didn't even know it was coming to Indianapolis. And so that allowed me to maybe research it and reach out to the conference people and start talking to them about maybe doing photography for them, or just getting my name out there in front of the conference planners. And so just in general, and like, he connected me with other people. He connected me with people that I could work with in the future or just have good connections with. So that event was great for my business and great for networking, but also just great for my personal growth and meeting people and hearing what they have to say about what I'm doing. So my biggest piece of advice to get in front of the people you want to is try to meet them in person if you can, or on Zoom. I mean, Zoom isn't the worst, but I always prefer an in-person meeting, whether it's just meeting like a real estate agent at a coffee shop if you want to work with them, or meeting with them in their office, or going to an event that you know they're going to be at. Things like that. I think networking and meeting people in person is critical for growing your business, because if you don't and you are passionate about growing your business, at least the way that I want to grow my business, I think you have to be doing those in-person meetings.
Well, there's something to say about authentic human connection, isn't there?
Yep, definitely.
And life is no, there's a sign in no, there's a sign in my office that says that life is a constant game of networking, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. I definitely didn't take that opportunity last year, and this year has been all about networking for me and all about going to events, and I've seen it really grow my business past where I even thought it could be. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I try to do every week and every day is challenge myself to be 1% better than I was the day before. Because one of the worst things you can do, no matter what field of work that you're in, is battle complacency. So I'm fascinated to ask you, how do you challenge yourself to be 1% better than the day than you were before?
Yeah, so I that's something that I've really like worked on these past few like weeks and months, especially. I noticed myself really like having trouble focusing on the work that I was doing and sitting down and actually getting work done. And so once I started to notice that, and when I do notice that on a daily basis, I'm constantly changing my environment. So if I'm sitting at my desk and I notice that like I just can't focus at my desk, I'm gonna go out to a coffee shop, or I'm gonna go out to there's like a grocery store with a big like study area above it. And so I'm gonna go there, and or I'm just gonna go upstairs in my house and work on at the kitchen table as opposed to working in my office area. So for me, whenever I notice that I'm not as productive as I need to be or productive as I want to be, I'm constantly reevaluating like, okay, what has gone on today? Do I just need to change the space? Do I need a change of environment, or do I need to eat something because I'm really tired, or do I need some coffee because it's the end of the day and I really just need that pick me up? Like or do I need to just, go sit down and just relax for like 5 minutes, or do I need to get outside and go on a walk? Like things like that for me, I'm constantly very self-aware of where I am in life and where, things are going. So, that's kind of how I'm looking at getting better, is just being really self-aware about what I need in the moment. And whether that is food or a drink or a different change of environment or a break, that's something I'm going to take and be very intentional about making those decisions, because the only way I need to be in the best mind space or headspace to do my best work. And so that's really what I'm focusing on.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, my last question for you has to do with your own personal and professional legacy and how you want that to be defined.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I haven't been asked that before. So I think for me, I really value people knowing me as the person that is always going to bring his best and do his best work every single time. And I'm also really hoping and working towards, people seeing me as somebody who is always going to be a really good communicator and just kind of work on those relationships with people, because that's really important to me and it's something that I want out of other people. So I value communication really heavily. And so when I'm working with clients, or even just personal and my friends and family relationships, communication is something that I focus on a lot. And so that's kind of what I would love people to see me as, is somebody who's really good at communication and worked really hard at providing a lot of value, both personally and professionally, but also being really good at communication.
Yeah, absolutely. And I lied. No, I have one more question for you. If you'll indulge me, buddy. I wanted your perspective on the difference between being confident and cocky and being sort of self-assured in your business. What do you think is the link between those two things? Being confident and assured versus being making sure that you're measured in your expectations and sort of the way you approach doing business?
Yeah, so I think being confident is it's the most important thing in business, and I think that there is definitely a line where you can cross between being cocky and being confident. I think the difference is where you are pushing your energy. So I think if you're confident, you are confident in your own work, you're confident in the things that you can provide, and you're confident in just your every aspect of your business, whether that's your pricing or the way you deliver content, deliver your product, the way that you are communicating with people. But I also think part of being confident is also being willing to reevaluate. So if you are confident, you're also willing to have that conversation with people and be like, hey, I didn't like how that was handled. Let's change how we're communicating, or let's change how we're doing business in this way. But if you're cocky, you're not willing to make those changes and you're kind of just set in your ways. So I think being confident, but also being willing to accept criticism and communication is really important. But there's also a point where you kind of have to stand firm on what you're doing, because especially if you're getting positive feedback from other people, chances are if you're not getting positive feedback from somebody else, there may be some things that you can change, but a lot of the time they may not be a good client for you or a good partner for you. And that's something I've had to work on a lot recently, is understanding like when to say no or when to walk away from something that's not going to be a good partnership for me. So I think that there's definitely a line, but it's about being confident. It's about being self-assured with yourself, but also being willing to accept criticism and reevaluate when things aren't necessarily going right between either you or a client or just you and the business. So I think, yeah, there definitely is a line, but it's better to be able to at least take the criticism, even if you don't make a change, just take it and understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, Noah, tell me if people want to get connected with you or the podcast, what's the best way they can do that, my friend?
Yeah, so for me, the best way to reach out to me is going to be on my website. So my website is noah-hutton.com. You can also email me at noah@noah-hutton.com. And then you can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. So just get connected anywhere like that. LinkedIn's probably the best one. And then the podcast is called The Rest of Us Podcast. Again, it's focused on talking to young entrepreneurs and helping them tell their story, their struggles, and the things that they've learned in their business growth journey. So you can find that on any listening platform. So wherever you're listening right now, just search The Rest of Us Podcast. It's on all the social media platforms. It's on, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you want to find it, it's there. So just look up The Rest of Us Podcast, and you'll be able to find it.
Fantastic. Well, Noah, I want to wish you the best of luck in your inspiring business journey, buddy. It sounds like you're off to a tremendous start, my friend, and I want to thank you for leading the way for young entrepreneurs and showing them that as long as they're willing to put in the work, success will follow, my friend. So your work in the space of entrepreneurship and time on my behalf this morning is most appreciated. I want to thank you for engaging in conversation with me, buddy, and I want to wish you a happy long weekend.
I appreciate it. This is great. Thank you so much for having me on.